You've been super successful as a CEO, as an entrepreneur, as a trainer, and so many other things. Is there some moment in your life you remember which kind of told you, a voice kind of came into you and said that, look, I can be a great leader? Something you can recall.
Be a little boastful. I've always felt that I was a leader.
Wow.
So when I was in IIT, I was a class monitor in 4th standard. And from then on, I've been the boss pretty much.
No, but you obviously built an amazing culture. I was looking at your retention levels of 87% plus, what you report in your annual report, and the participation of people in Persistent Foundation. So how does that come? I mean, is it great HR? Is it your leadership style or Sandeep's leadership style? What's happening here?
I think most of this now, I don't do anything at all. So it's not my leadership style anymore on this.
So if you think of those first 4 orbits, was there any decision you took or anything that you had to do which, looking back, you would do differently today? I mean, you've been an incredibly successful company, so probably there's nothing, but something comes to your mind.
There were many things that we did which maybe we shouldn't have done, or otherwise we did which were very unusual in some ways. Till 2003, I did not send anybody on work permit.
Hi, welcome to this new episode of Unmute with Ganesh. And I'm really privileged to have a good friend with me, Anand Deshpande. And Anand, of course, is founder and chairman of Persistent, one of our most significant companies, definitely in Pune, and possibly in the entire tech sector in India and the world. And I know Anand for many years because when I moved to Pune in 2001, Persistent, Zensar, and KPIT were the 3 significant IT companies in the city. And I think we've all seen these companies grow, and Persistent, of course, has been a rock star. So Anand, let me start by, everybody knows about you, so I don't need to introduce Anand Deshpande. And you've been super successful as a CEO, as an entrepreneur, as a trainer, and so many other things. But tell me, is there some moment in your life you remember which kind of told you, a voice kind of came into you and said that, look, I can be a great leader? Something you can recall?
Well, to be a little boastful, I've always felt that I was a leader.
Wow.
Whether it was in college itself. So when I was in IIT, I was a class monitor in 4th standard. And from then on, I've been the boss pretty much. So this came naturally, I guess. I've always, even in IIT, I was doing many things where I was leading many interesting activities. So I wouldn't say this came in, I've always been like that, I would say.
So the confidence was there
Always.
Right from the time you were like 7 years old, is it?
Yes, you might say that.
And what are the
Overconfidence at times, maybe, but yes.
And what are the leadership roles you play today, Anand? I mean, apart from being chairman of Persistent, I mean, I know you do so many other things. So maybe the audience needs to know a little bit more about your diversity of personality.
So about 6 years back, I moved from being the CEO to the chairman. That gave me some more free time to do other things.
Okay.
So I decided that I should focus on long-term and impactful ideas rather than doing one-off things. So I divided my time into 3 broad buckets. One set is around entrepreneurship. The second set is, I like to have the technical kida, if you might say. So the whole process of technology, data, AI, computer science, and I've sort of brought in health and other related things in that context. And the third, I'm very curious about careers, future of careers, education, those kinds of things. So those are the 3 broad areas in which I have divided a bunch of activities. I think I have too many right now, but I think in another year or 2, I'll be able to shed some of them.
But I think you also work with a lot of invest in and mentor a lot of entrepreneurs. I know that you do this wonderful program with Ashok Korwar called Second Orbit. So, I mean, what is the linkage between all these 3?
No, so that's part of my entrepreneurship bucket.
Okay.
So I have 2 programs and a third one we are doing in the entrepreneurship bucket. So one is I work with very tiny, so we call them nano entrepreneurs. They're between 10 lakhs and 1 crore. That's the segment that I'm focusing on. And that is through the Asra Foundation. So that's the first bucket. The second entrepreneurship bucket I work on is Second Orbit. So the theory here is that business growth is a sequence of S curves. You do something, you see growth, and you flatten out. And then you have to find the next orbit and the third one and so on. So this transition from the first to the second orbit is very hard for founders. And so our course is designed to help founders build the muscle to move from first orbit to second orbit. And that's the program I run with Ashok Korwar. And then most recently, I got asked by some other people who run larger companies that this seems to make sense even for larger companies. So we are trying to experiment with this at Flame in the next 2 weeks, a program we call Next Orbit, where the entry criteria for people to come to this program is those between 500 and 2,500 crores.
Oh, really? And go from there.
So 10x that.
Wow.
See what it is. So I'm more in the learning board there. I have not worked with this group at all, but the other people have, and I'm trying to fish my way around and learn something in the process.
I see. That's awesome. So let's go back a little, Anand. I mean, where did you grow up? What was your growing up experience? Because my own theory is that many successful leaders today have come from, or what I could say, ordinary people doing extraordinary things. So what was your own growing up and how did that take place?
So my father is an electrical engineer. He did engineering and then joined Bharat Heavy Electricals, first job, sort of. He joined in Bhopal. So I grew up in Bhopal. I did all my schooling in Bhopal and lived in the BHL township in Bhopal. So much like what you would seen, but the BHL township was very large, 30,000 employees or so. So it is one of those where my father would have many colleagues who all were the same age with kids the same age. So we had a very fun, should I say, interesting experience where our parents knew each other and they knew all the kids, and anything you did, everyone knew about it. So I grew up in the township and went to school in Bhopal, in Campion School, Bhopal. I did my 11th there. And then I went to Kharagpur. So yeah, that's pretty much the early years. And it was an engineering geek community. Everyone's parents were engineers, right? They were all in this huge township. So engineering was like the default for most of us. And at that point, it was either engineering or medicine. So biology seemed too bloody. So I moved to engineering.
Very similar to mine. I grew up wanting to go to Cambridge and become English language and English literature. And my father told me two options, engineering or medicine. Right. At that time, I couldn't cut cockroaches properly, so I said engineering. That's how it happened. So you never considered any other option. It was always Anand Deshpande was going to be an engineer.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, we didn't know anything else.
And which branch of engineering did you choose, or what did you look at?
So, I finished 11th, and at that point, this transition of 10 plus 2 was happening in other states. Madhya Pradesh was the last of the states that did 11th. And we had a situation where and we were very worried that, we were kind of so most of the NITs and others needed like 12 years of things. And IIT was also a lot of 12th standard people were trying. So I applied to all kinds of things, and I got into IIT Kharagpur because I had a big 4-digit rank. And at that point, I joined Aero in Kharagpur. So yeah, I mean, that's what I could get. No, I didn't do Aero. I started with Aero. So I did 2 years of Aero, and then we were very lucky. We got a chance to change. And I changed to computer science after second year. So third, fourth, fifth, I did. We had a 5-year course. So I did the third, fourth, fifth in computer science and graduated as computer science. Our batch was the third computer science batch in IITs, across all IITs. So pretty early days of computer science in that sense.
Oh, I see. That's interesting. I remember I joined computer engineering, and after 3 years, I switched to mechanical engineering, the exact reverse of yours.
Yes.
So we all make our mistakes or choices
as
we go along. And after that, Anand, so after you finished engineering, what was the ambition? What were you?
So, everybody in my class, IIT, like everyone was applying abroad. And that whole thing about getting to see the world at somebody else's expense was so attractive that we all applied. I also applied, and I got into a few places, but I ended up at Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana. And it was a nice thing. I started out, all of us write masters leading to PhD type stuff. So we started out there, and within the first year or so, I realized the department was starting to grow. They were starting to add more PhD students, and the department was growing. So we had a concept of a qualifying exam. So I sort of did it in my third semester, hoping that, if I had to leave, still I'll have that ready. I accidentally qualified. Like most people didn't expect that I would make it, because most people took it after 3 years.
Oh, I see.
So I got through, and then I said, well, now I have something going on, so let me just stay on. Bloomington's a very comfortable place. Beautiful town, small town, very nice. So I stayed there 5 years.
So you finished your PhD also?
I stayed there, finished my PhD in 89. So I went there in 84. 84 to 89, I was in Bloomington, Indiana, computer science. I worked in databases. And so I finished my PhD in 89 from Bloomington, Indiana. And then, so it was a very freak thing, but I knew some people. I had a conference paper in Los Angeles in 88 for the VLDB, as they call it. And since I was going there, I wrote to a few people in the Bay Area saying, hey, I'm traveling, I have a paper, can I come and visit? So I did one visit at IBM Research and one visit at HP Research. And the HP research guys gave me an offer. And when during the interview, I remember that guy asked me, what is your plan and all that. So I said, I'm not graduating till May 89. This was in 88, July, August. But I said, if you make me an offer before 30th of September, then I'll accept it, because I go with, why would I bother looking around? But if you don't make me an offer before 30th of September, then this whole academic tour of traveling to all the universities and giving a speech, that's a very interesting experience. I thought I'll go through it just because I can see the US anyway. So I told him that you make me an offer before 30th September, then I don't go anywhere. Otherwise, I don't know. So they did, and then I accepted it. And then I kept the offer for 6 months. I joined in May 89.
And how long you were there?
18 months.
Oh, 18 months. And then?
So I had a J1 visa at that point. So J1 was an exchange visitor visa. And we got 18 months of practical training. Other practical training was 12 months. And then normally people would apply for H1. It was not that difficult to get green cards and H1s at that time. But I said, if I have to go back, I must go early, otherwise not go. So I had to make that Boolean decision. So I decided that, I will take a chance to go back, and I did not apply for H1 at all. So I did my 18 months, I did 17 and a half months and just came back.
You came back to India?
Yeah.
And then how did persistent happen?
It started before I came back.
Okay.
So what happened was, so just the timing wise, this was 1990. So February 1990, March 1990, Vittal, who was the secretary, Department of Electronics, he made a trip to the Bay Area. And before TIE, there used to be an organization called SIPA, Silicon Valley Indian Professional Association. So he came and did a talk there saying he's setting up software technology parks in India and all of that. And I felt that okay, if I'm going back, this seems like a good idea. And I had a friend who used to work for Patni. He had moved to the Bay Area. He was starting out Patni in that area. And I could see what he was doing. And I felt it seemed made sense. So, and in March, he told us that they're going to do it. So I asked my father, who was already here, to kind of set up the company and all that. And I came back in October 1990 and pretty much joined the company.
So the company was about a year old when you came in?
No, it was it just takes a long time to set up at that point. Yeah, so we first filed the paper in March 1990. We got the registration on 29th of May 1990. And nothing had happened in the company, meaning it was just a company. And I came back in October 1990 and then basically started working at it.
So did you also go in persistent through first orbit, second orbit, and
yes, absolutely.
sixth orbit?
Yeah, we are in our sixth one.
Sixth? My goodness, that's quite. So how do you define
35
those,
years. 35 years.
How do you define those 6 phases?
No. So I see what happens is, let me first explain that. The thing about orbits is that when you shift orbits, what happens is when you run a company, you reach that top of the S curve, right? All of a sudden, it starts to feel very difficult, and you have to transform. You have to do something different. Now, what works in one orbit doesn't work in the next orbit. So every orbit shift is very traumatic, hard. It's hard on people. It's all of those things. So you can feel the change. So I can tell you my 6 as well. So the first orbit was a long one, which was mostly about we doing database centric work, because that was where that was my expertise, and we were working with some other people in very specific niche projects, mostly R&D type work. So that was our first 10 years. And in 2001, we sort of decided to focus on what we call outsourced product development. So that was, we stopped calling ourselves IT outsourcing, all that. So we said product outsourcing.
No, I know.
So that was a unique variation.
When I came to Pune in 2001, I always thought yours was a pure product company. So
yes, we were building products. We just had outsourcing of products. Right? In the first orbit, we were doing similar things, but we never called it out.
Yeah, correct.
But what happened is that after Y2K had ended and .com had kind of gone through its own thing, everyone was starting to talk about outsourcing. So it was very hard to compete with the big boys. We were very small. We were 100 people at that point, 100, 125 people. So we sort of decided to pick that niche, and that took us from about, I'd say, from 2001 till 2008. And 2008, the global financial crisis happened. At that period, I know I met 150 different CEOs of customers. I was not meeting CEOs before that, because normally we would work with VP engineering and the tech guys. CEOs, I never run into them. But then I learned a lot of things, and we decided to focus on not just R&D and engineering or product engineering. We said, okay, let's be more involved in the entire business of the customer. So that took us to the third orbit. And at that point, we really focused on tech like cloud, analytics, mobility, collaboration, and all those kinds of things. And then that would be our third orbit. That I went on till about 2015, 16 or so. In 2015,
So that's
16,
much more of a holistic digital transformation kind of.
that is when the 16 which happened. So what happened was we were working for software product companies. So that has been our thing from the very beginning. So most of the early customers were database product companies, and we were doing R&D for them. That was in the first orbit. In the second orbit, we said we'll do full product development.
Okay.
In the third orbit, we said not only will we do product development, we'll do testing, QA, also we'll do product deployments. So we'll work with you as a partner of yours. So we were now also reselling products, acquiring products. So doing the full ecosystem of products. And the fourth orbit, what we realized is that while we have been in the business of software, we found that everyone is starting to become a software-driven business. So there was this whole move that all companies wanted to become like software companies. So we said, hey, we have good understanding of how products are built. Let's take that to the enterprises. So that was the transition that we moved into, digital transformation and all of that stuff, and said, okay, now we should sell to enterprises, not implementations of products, but more about new products that they would build on the new environments that were coming up. So all of these new things that came in around that time where people were building all this.
That is the fourth orbit.
That is our fourth orbit.
Okay.
In the fifth orbit, I moved to sort of reach that point where I said in 2019-20, I said, well, I've been at it for 30 years. There was this discussion about CEO, chairman being separate, all of that stuff going on. So I decided that I should become chairman and not remain CEO, and I handed the CEO's job. So that would be the fifth orbit. And then after we turned billion, the game has changed a little bit. So this is where we call ourselves in the sixth AI-driven orbit that we are in now. So that's the sixth.
But tell me, Anand, everybody says AI nowadays. I mean,
Yes.
It's almost like if you don't have AI in your surname, there's something wrong with you. So
Yes.
what's different about Persistent?
No. We are very much in the AI game. So the interesting thing that we think about AI is the one is that we've been doing AI for a very long time. We also work with all the makers of AI. So all these product companies who are building products, many of them are customers of ours in their AI divisions as well. And we have so we have been training a lot of people also on AI. So right now we have in our AI strategy, we are working with companies on accelerating the product roadmap. That is one area that we are seeing a lot of action. We are also doing a lot of legacy modernization using AI. So that's been another big area. And then data has been our forte from the very beginning. And we have quite a bit of AI readiness type work that is coming in re-implementing the AI platforms.
Okay.
So we have a lot of very good action in the AI market right now. And I'm a big AI fan right now. I think AI is going to transform the world.
But tell me one thing. We keep getting flack in NASSCOM and the entire industry about why is it that we are a $200 billion services industry and products is only 10-15. So, isn't Persistent, weren't you eminently poised to be a great product development company?
Yeah. So we tried many times to build our own products. We have many products of our own. We were never able to sell it on our own. So why is that the case is a good question to ask, right? So one of the things that there's a legacy to it, right? So if you think about it, let's say pre-2015 or so, I would say, the early years of when we all were starting to work, companies were all headquartered out of India, or at least the ownership, when we talk about NASSCOM companies, they were all India-oriented companies. So building sales channels and sales teams, right, which would sell products was never something that we were able to invest in. Because the whole concept was that, we are all paying ourselves, the engineering business that we were getting and outsourcing was fairly low sales as a percentage of sales on the total revenue, right? So if you look at a product company, the engineering cost of the product is less than 20% typically. If you look at a stable product company, that's the piece that we can optimize in India. Market for Indian products in India was non-existent. So the whole point was that if you're building a product company and the sales marketing is all in the US, building it from India, what are you optimizing? It doesn't work really. So that transition was very hard for Indian companies to make because you're sitting in India, you're thinking about your cost structure, and your cost structure of engineering is only 20%. The rest of it has to come from sales and marketing and being there. That we never were able to do it well. So we built lots of products, but we found that it was much easier or more effective for us to partner with some of the big boys who would sell our products to them. So we had IP revenue, we still have. But a lot of it came in because you would not know that it was coming from us. We were just getting some royalty checks of some sort. But
do you think this is going to happen in AI also? I mean, the whole foundational models and the LLMs, and of course, things like DeepSeek from China. And the jury is still out on whether India should compete in that foundational space.
Yeah, we should compete.
You think so?
Yes, absolutely.
So not just be an application specialist.
No, not at all. I think one thing that is important to note, and if you want to learn more, I'm very much a big fan of what Demis Hassabis has been talking. For the last few months, he's been talking a lot about world models and models changing. So the reality is that if you look at foundational models that were built, the LLM card is a language model.
Correct.
What that means is they have taken text and tokenized text tokens and built a network which uses the relationships between tokens. But there is no reason why tokens need to be language tokens. They can be molecular objects, they can be physical objects, and we could build relationships between physical objects, we could build relationships between molecular objects. We could do this for physics, we could do this for chemistry, we could do this for any subject for that matter. The whole program or the what we have seen in the last 15 years, let's say 10 years or even 5 years, the ability for the neural network using various deep learning and engineering systems to do amazing things by bringing in multimodality in the STEM is unbelievable. And that can be applied to various other things. So we must absolutely invest in building next generation of different things. And one of the things I've been telling people is that if you want to do Indian AI, we need Indian data. Part of the reason we are not there is because we have not done enough to collect and make our own data sets. And that's a big issue. And I think unless we create our data, why would anybody? I mean, what is unique about our AI if you don't have our data in it?
No, I agree with you. But I mean, do you think that India still has the opportunity? Are
Absolutely.
we too late in the game?
Of course, in AI, we are just at the first, second base at the moment. If you thought we are done, why would Zuckerberg pay $100 million to people, right? We are nowhere near done. I think we are just starting out. It's just that we have to move fast and we have to do a little bit more than just sort of wait on it.
But somebody has to write big checks.
Well, checks is one part, but I think checks, yes, somebody has to write big checks. But I don't think it's just about the checks, because I think the cost of AI has come down very dramatically. First thing. Second thing, I think, even if you look at what we see in the enterprise world also, the traditional language model things that have been built on text. When you start to put structured data inside those language models and you put not the text representation of that data, but the data itself, then you get very interesting kinds of tokens, models, and all those things. And there's still, I think the jury is completely open right now. I think there's a lot more that can happen in this. And I think the integration of different concepts to, applying physics to, say, financial problems is something we never have imagined before. But today, one can apply physics to financial problems. So this whole interdisciplinarity, intermodality, multimodality of data is unbelievable. I think we are still at the very beginning.
So can we hope that Anand Deshpande will spawn a new company which does exactly
No,
this?
I'm not trying to do this right now.
No? Why?
No, because, I could, but I have some other things I'm working on. But no, I'm not going to, I think I'm done now. I'm not ready to run around. But I'm very happy to help people who want to create these kinds of companies. And I'm not going to, I think it can be done. I think people should.
No, at least as part of a government organization which does not say the same thing
I'm supporting
again.
them. I'm supporting various things and various kinds of activities, and I'm happy to support. But it's when you're looking at government and everybody else, it's not my decision, right? Sarkar, whatever happens will happen. So I'm happy to support, but I cannot influence those things right now. But right now, I know I have moved. I'm a big user and tracker of AI, track technology like crazy. I'm happy to tell people what I'm learning, and I tell people at Persistent as well what we are thinking about. But that said, I think the next generation will build these things, and I'm quite happy to support. I'm quite excited. I think there's enough people in the country who can do these kinds of things. So I'm not as negative as many of the other people. And we must absolutely go after this in a big way. And we should do the AI plus X in a big way. So AI, of course, is going to be there, but AI in engineering. Like I was telling somebody, right? So today you can generate, right? So this is a generative AI stuff, right? You can generate a notebook or a new poem or whatever else. Why can you do that? Because I have learned from hundreds and thousands and millions of poems. So I can generate a new poem. If I could since you've been part of the engineering industries, let's say I could take all the engines designed in the world and make them. I should be able to say, okay, design me a new engine for a drone, right? You should be able to generate all that. The science for doing those kinds of things exists, but nobody has. We need to train these things. So what we train on, how do we train on, at what level, what efficiency? I think there's a lot to do.
No, that's great. I hope some of the entrepreneurs watching this program get some ideas from this and really pitch and make it happen. So
Absolutely.
let's come back to your journey, Anand. I mean, during those 6 orbits that you mentioned, I mean, did your own leadership style change? You must have.
Absolutely.
So can you give us some insights into, let's say, somebody who's now building a 10 crore, becoming a 100 crore organization? So how do you think he or she will see changes in their own leadership style going forward?
Right. So
what happened to you?
So yeah, meaning when I started the company, I had no idea what I was doing in a way, because I was hacking my way on my own. And it was a small business. India was a small country. A little bit of money, you're making more money than you would make in your salary, barely. But that was fine. It was good, fun work. What I really liked in my first 5 years of business was I was doing. So one of my objectives when I came back, basically one objective was that I want to make sure I don't compromise my resume. Very selfish, very, very selfish. But the idea was I should not go to India, because that was a discussion. Oh, you'll go back and you'll do some, random stuff. No, I want to keep doing high quality work that I would have done in the Bay Area in India. So that was my first 5 years of the Persistent, or first 10 years also. We were very focused on that. And I was very hands-on on algorithms, coding and all of that kind of thing. But that wouldn't have scaled. So when I had to move to the second orbit, this is one thing we tell people. So you have to move from my company to our company. And that transition was very hard for me. And that changed my leadership style completely. It changed how I think. It changed what my focus was, because I stopped moving. We had enough people who could write code.
So
I moved into sales.
More delegation is what you would say happened?
Yeah, delegation. More than that, I changed my focus. I sort of moved into more directly selling, and I was thinking more of sales. And I was not. When you are sort of responsible for code that you are shipping to the customer, other people don't touch your code. Yaar, boss ka code hai. Nobody. Kya hoga malum nahi. So you have to do your sales in the day, and then in the evening you got to go fix the bugs that somebody else points out. It's very taxing. So I sort of got off that, saying I'm not writing code for customers anymore. I'll write for myself. So that's how this transition happened.
And in the third and fourth phases, I mean, while you were still CEO, I mean, what other changes did you have to make?
Right. So by the time we went into the third phase, we had venture capitalists, we had VCs there. They had a different kinds of discipline. One had to see how your investors start to come in. By the time we were in that orbit, we were a public company. What you say, how you say, what happens, all those things were good learning for me. I learned pretty much on the job, right? So yeah, so all of those things were very different. In terms of delegation also, a lot of things changed. I was always very worried that I could be overbearing in the company. That was something I know, I can be. When I pick something, I'm very passionate about whatever I have to say. So I will fight that position till the end, and then next day maybe I'll change it. But when I'm in a meeting, if I take a position, then I will not let go on that. Right? So it's just exciting that way. But so I was very careful about it. So I was very sure, I was very keen to make sure that other people get their opportunity to say what they want to say. And delegation
with funders and so many people in the ecosystem, did you have to become more diplomatic in your style?
I don't think I was not diplomatic. I've been always very polite and firm. So that has not changed a whole lot.
Okay.
But no, I worked at HP for about 18 months, okay? So the HP way was something I really learned a lot from how culture was built within the HP context, right? And the respect for other people, and, that whole concept of how everyone's opinion should be heard, and how you kind of let people say what they want to say and all that. I can see that at HP. And we were very, very much like that, and pretty much for all through the time that I was running. Anybody could say anything, and we never went after people who said whatever they felt like saying.
Okay.
So we would have meetings where, when the young kids would go and tell you.
So that is the kind of culture you created here also.
Yeah. So it was kind of like that. So we didn't have to do too much on that part of it. But, this whole thing that boss says, so everyone has to follow that particular thing, we were very careful about not trying to make that happen at all. So everybody should be able to say whatever they feel like, right? They should be able to give their, basically the escalations or whatever, the whistleblower, whoever wants to say something, they should have that ability to say it. That takes a lot of work in India. much easier to do that in the US.
No, it's true. The culture.
Otherwise, everybody is sir, ye karo, sir ne bola. So, then nothing happens, right? So that's the basic.
No, but you
themes.
obviously built an amazing culture. I was looking at your, retention levels of 87% plus, and what you report in your annual report, and the participation of people in Persistent Foundation. So how does that come? Is it great HR? Is it your leadership style or Sandeep's leadership style? What's happening here?
So I think most of this now I don't do anything at all. So it's not my leadership style anymore on this topic at the moment. And I try to deliberately stay out of it because it's very easy to get into.
Yes, of course.
So so it's most of this is there. But I think the overall culture of doing things has been there. We care about everything that we want to do. Whatever you do it with style kind of has been something that we have done over the years. So yeah, people see it and you get some of that.
So if you think of those first 4 orbits, was there any decision you took or anything that you had to do which looking back you would do differently today? You've been an incredibly successful company. So probably there's nothing, but something comes
No. We do differently. I don't know about differently, but there were many things that we did which maybe we shouldn't have done or otherwise we did which were very unusual in some ways. So like for example, in the first orbit, we had decided not to do any H1Bs. We did not send anybody abroad. Till 2003, I did not send anybody on work permits to this. We lost a lot of people because everyone wanted to go abroad at that. But we were just, we have to do this from here, so we have to do it from here. So that was sort of the whole engine, right? Maybe if we would have been a little more open to ideas on that, we may have grown much faster. We of course didn't. For the first orbit, we did not touch anything that was not cool. Like, who will want to do just Y2K or whatever else? So that was the whole attitude that we created for ourselves. Maybe, that slowed us down in the early years. But in a way, what happens is when you are a founder of the company, that you need to indulge yourselves for a period of time so that you don't feel like indulging later on. So I don't feel bad about what we did, but that's how we did the things that we did. And meaning there were many things that we did. We tried many times building products. We failed in many of them. Perhaps we hung up too early. We could have stayed on with some of them a little longer. We would have maybe succeeded on them, or we should have invested a little more money on it. We were not super confident about, because you look at yourselves and compare in the cost of sales and all that. How much should we try to spend on selling that? Cost of the product was a big issue. I chose not to move to the US. If I had to make this more product selling and all that. I tried asking my wife in between, should we go? This was in 2002, 2003, but she was not very keen to, and we said, no, we'll just stay here. So that basically meant traveling and all that. So selling products like that was very hard. So yeah, many of these things, if I have to do it differently, under today's conditions, that would be very different. But India at that point was very different. When we started the business, and you were very much aware of that, 1990 total business in India would have been $30-40 million. Absolutely. So trying to say that we had big aspirations was very much like, we also doubted our own abilities in some sense, right? So if you were to say, okay, I'm going to take a big bet and build a product, well, I just didn't have that confidence in that thing. But if I were doing this today, I can see it could have been done. So yeah, meaning a lot of these things are circumstantial. But I would say one thing about us, that I always felt confident about our survival. That was one important thing. And we felt, we could make it at a certain point. There's some small numbers at every level, but we never had any self-doubt about our existence, let me say that.
But tell me one thing, moving to Orbit 5, which must be a tough one for you. You've been such a hands-on, great CEO, and we've all gone through this. When you finish your CEO stint and then you trying and managing other companies where you're not the CEO. So did that create any trauma for you at all? Or you
yes and no. So I spent 3 years to make this transition.
Okay.
I spoke to everyone that right, who probably be on your channel as well. So all the regular people, some who made it, so didn't make it. And it distilled down to 3 basic things that they told me about how to do the succession.
How to let go?
Not let go. How to do the succession. Okay. Not letting go, right? So first is that they said you make sure you have enough things to do beyond persistent. If you don't have enough things to do, then you have to interfere, right? So be very clear you have enough things to do. The second thing was that they said, don't talk to anybody who is N-1 of the CEO, because all they're going to do is gossip. Third is have a direct channel with the CEO on a sort of regular basis. Pick up the phone, anything that's bothering you, discuss whatever thing that's bothering him. He should talk to you, not to through other people. So no indirect channel. So that's basically what I've been following. That has helped. And my being so busy with other things has really helped. I just don't have time for him. And that's fine. And he also doesn't need it.
No, that's very interesting, and it's actually a very good sign. But tell me one thing about, I mean, generally people, I mean, if you talk to people who worked with you, and I've talked to many people who worked in Persistent, I've never heard a bad word about leadership style or anything. But what do you think they would say about Anand Deshpande? Anand Deshpande, they worked with in the 90s, in 2000s, 2018. What is your significant personal opinion about your leadership style and the way you dealt with people?
I have let people be what they have. I have not tried to. I'm a reasonably good listener, actually. I let people do their jobs by and large. So that's one thing that they will tell you. And there are certain areas where I know I can contribute. So I'm a very tech geek. I love technology. I love tracking things. I like selling. All those things I do, I'm happy to contribute. But we have had this policy of decision making where we don't do committees. We have clarity of who's supposed to make the decision. And it's not always me. Be somebody else. So everyone is giving opinions, but decisions are made by someone who is supposed to make the decisions. I've lived with that for a long time. So people who have worked with me will have had, for their domains, I have not interfered in their lives or in their decision making, or they don't have to ask me anything. They can go independently and do whatever it takes to run that thing. And the other part that we have been very careful about, and I would grant my father also a lot of credit on this. He was working with me for almost 20 years. So he worked for me, actually. And, he's, of course, my father. So he had, we were very strong on value systems. So we were very careful about, ensuring that, again, values and all, you can write whatever you want. But it's basically the obvious things that you do in our families that you learn. We followed them very carefully. So we did not cut corners on any of these aspects. And people could see that. And it was like, okay, I care about you, I'll take care of you type stuff. So that's where he came in as well, and he did a lot of that. And that followed into the company. So that was also another thing that people will say that, people cared about people. That was another thing you'll hear from us, from our employees.
So tell me 2 or 3 significant values. I mean, that your personal values, not necessarily Persistent or including Persistent. What is it that you would never compromise on?
So ethics has been one important thing that we have not compromised on. And, governance kinds of issues we have been very, very careful about. And so those are the main themes. And then basically you do, eventually it comes down to saying that, I promise what I can deliver and I deliver what I promise. So those things kind of go hand in hand, and that's something you'll see everywhere. And respect for individuals has been another thing that we all grew up with. I saw that at HP in a big way, and we have generally followed that across the company.
Have you had to take any tough calls that you found somebody who was violating a value?
Yes, all the time. Yes, absolutely. And we have, so in those kinds of cases, what I have found, and I've done this, you have to do this all the time, right? Somebody either is not performing, values are bad, some issue or the other. That happens all the time. But so I have been very careful about how to make those decisions. One is you want to have an adult conversation rather than make it an issue. Very directly tell the person, this is the reason why I don't want this to continue, and you are out, or this action has to be taken. It's not about trying to frame a story around it. So very direct. I've always had somebody else in the room as well to ensure that the temperatures don't go crazy and you don't get into personal things and all that. And it's been very, very direct kind of conversations that I've had. And it's not for me or you, it's about the company. The company, we find that in this context, you're not the right person. This is not something that is aligned. So I'm going to take this decision. And it's a transparent, direct, one-on-one decision. It's not some story or anything like that. So people also appreciate that. And pretty much people have asked to go as well, not for ethical, but other issues. They still continue to be in good contact. They're still friends. Nobody, I'm very careful about not breaking bridges. So that has not happened by and large.
How about support from family, Anand? I mean, I know
100%.
Sonali very well, so I think you clearly have a very good rapport with family. And
Yeah, my father, as I said, he worked for me for about 20 years. So there was definitely family support there. My wife, kids have been all part of the game.
of course.
I got married and the company at the same time. So we have all coexisted.
So you're talking about kids. I mean, suppose now you look at the young generation. I mean,
Yes.
what is your view on young people? Are they working hard enough? Should they do something else? What's your old man advice to?
No, I think everyone should decide what's right for them. Okay, so but here's what I tell people, that you need to be learning all the time. So we are living in a world which is quite complex and lots of things are going to happen. So if you want to succeed and you look at 10-year view, what is going to happen in 2035? You have to figure it out in 2033. So you need to build a muscle so that you can figure things out when you need to figure things out. And the kids today are quite smart. They are able to figure things out very quickly. And I think, we grew up in a very constrained world. So we had all these hang-ups about many such things. Kids today don't have those hang-ups. The whole world is theirs. And I see them, super confident about what they're doing, the risks that they're able to take, which are not really risks when you look at it. We thought of them as risks because we had this whole idea. In your first 10 years, if you go take do something which we would have never thought of. I mean, we were like, oh, I can save that 6 months. I'll compress all my courses in 3 quarters or 3 semesters rather than the 4 semesters. I'll get 1 extra year. It's like, I don't know why we were thinking like that, but this was our upbringing or whatever you might say. Right?
Correct.
Taking a year off, come on, man, it could have never happened. But kids today are bold, they are confident, they can take that and they can go on. So I'm very upbeat on the next generation as well. I think I see a very
So you're saying they shouldn't be following any beaten track and
absolutely
do what your heart tells you to do and go ahead and do it.
Do it sensibly is all I would say. Heart is only one part of it. It depends where you want to go, and if you know where you're going, then you follow what it takes to get there. That's sort of the main thing. Trying to say it's only passion is not correct. If you want to be a good golfer, you have to practice.
Great. That last dig was for me as a very bad golfer, so that's okay.
No, meaning whatever you say.
No, I know. But I think you heard it from Anand. I think here's one person who knew what he wanted to do, accomplished it, but is still willing to let go and let everybody say that, look, let's follow their own heart. Any final thoughts from you, Anand, before we close?
No, Ganesh, I think you're doing a great job. It's an honor to be part of this. And, I love talking to you, and thanks for inviting me. And yeah, I think I'm a very optimistic about where we are in India right now. I think we should stop just sort of criticizing ourselves and just sort of take it forward. I think the young kids are capable, they're ready, and I think we need to encourage the rest of us. We have probably passed the hump, but there is enough happening, and I think if we can encourage them, I think good things will come. I'm very optimistic.
Thanks, Anand, and thanks, and all the best for your own life orbits. I'm sure there are many more to follow.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on the show.